Okay, so we're going to get started. Welcome to Purpose to Profit. For those of you who have been on the training with me before, you know I really like my flip charts and my marker boards. But for today, we are going old school with slides because there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of things that you need to answer and work on. So in order to utilize them later, I want to you have the ability to go back and replay and pause and really take time to answer all the questions. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's see how this works. All right, let's get this up and opened. And we are going to, hey, those of you guys hopping on, we are getting started. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Sorry about that. Okay, so for those of you who are just hopping on, I just wanted to kind of let you know we're going old school with slides because of the amount of questions, the amount of things. So grab your water, grab your pen, your journal, your paper, and just know that you will have time to, you'll get these slides in your email with the recording, so you'll be able to go back and listen. You can also, for this training, if you're more comfortable, you can shut off your video. It's fine. It doesn't matter for this training until the end if you want to turn them back on for questions. So let's get started. So for those of you who don't know me, I know I have a few people that are going to be on this recording that don't know or haven't been on my trainings before. So I'm just going to go briefly and tell you a little bit about me, and then we're going to get right into it. So I am an empowerment and success coach, a speaker, a mentor for girls, and I really, really want to be able to help women and girls be able to unshackle from the stories that are keeping them stuck and really utilize their voice to make an impact in their own lives and in others. So it's super important to know and understand what your story is, what your mission is, and what your impact is. So that's what we are doing today. I threw a couple pictures up there, if you can see, of my pups, and the bottom photo is just because really that's my nature. I'm pretty silly most of the time. So, all right, what are you trying to sell versus what's trying to come through you? What does this mean? So this is actually about asking yourself, what do I need to get love? So sometimes we match our ego and do what we think people want or people need versus what you're truly here to do. And I see that a lot of times sometimes with women in network marketing, where they're selling a product where they feel like it's what people want, but it's not truly what you want from your heart. It's not what you're here to do. So I want you to take a look at that. You can have a network marketing company as a passive income, as a way you make money. But if you deep down feel like it's not what you're here to do, that there's a reason for that. So you have to ask yourself, am I doing what I'm here to do, or is it something that makes someone else happy? Is it some kind of plan that you followed that somebody told you need to follow? Are you just hiding behind your own insecurities? There's a lot of reasons why we can hide behind selling something versus what you actually are here to do. So right now, you need to identify that this isn't you. So right now, I want you to close your eyes, and I just want you to take a second, drop into your body, and get connected into the place where there's no shame, no guilt, no fear, just love. This is where we're starting from tonight, this connected place. I want you to connect into and start from the place of full self-belief, self-worth, and self-confidence. This is where you're going to choose to look at yourself, your business, your life, and where you are going to inherit and create your impact from this deep place. So right now, the key is to give yourself permission to live from who you are versus who you think people need you to be. So before you open your eyes, I'm going to ask you, are you truly ready and willing to receive and act in this way of thinking right now? So this is the way that you're going to be thinking and all of your actions are going to be coming from this place. Okay, let's get rolling. So the real meaning, let's talk about the meanings of purpose, mission, and impact, because I think that there's a missing part to this, because people are out there saying they're searching for a purpose. Your purpose, the actual definition is the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. Have as one's intention or objective. So something for which something exists. Your purpose is you because you exist. So stop thinking that you have to go out and search for a purpose. This is where we're going back inside and we're saying it's already inside of you. This is where your story comes from. It's already there. So we're not out there searching for a purpose. Your mission, it's a strongly felt aim, ambition, or calling. So this is the thing that you're feeling called to do, whatever that looks like. If it's coach, if it's speak, mentor women, if it's write a book, however it is that you're looking to empower or help another person in a way of service. The impact is the effect or influence of one person, thing, or action on another, or having a strong effect on someone or something. So your mission is your calling, and that is the strong, and your impact is a strong effect on someone. So there's a big difference between thinking that you have to go out there and search for something. What I want you to do is take the word purpose and cross it out and put you, and then it's you and your mission and your impact. So that's the deep rooted meaning of this particular. I wanted you to really understand that they're not out there searching for a purpose. You are the purpose. Okay. So if you've been on my trainings before, you know I like these little slides that tell you where you are in the middle of them. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. This is what we are really going to coach through. The purpose, as you can see, that's you in that center. And the things around it is who you are, your impact, your magic, and what she needs. So again, remember the purpose, your passion or purpose, it's not found anywhere else. It's just something you find internally, not externally. But it's the first thing we do. Like, we tend to make it a job. We tend to make our purpose a job. And we tend to keep saying it. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my purpose is. And in order to really connect to that, you have to have a deeper connection to yourself. And that's usually what's missing. You need to know you. And most of the people, most of the time, they don't want to do the work for that. So what is it to look inside yourself? So these are the 4 questions that you are going to ask yourself to get into the deep part of you. So the first one is, what are your core values? What are the things that are so important to you that you are not going to waver even the slightest? It doesn't matter who or what is going on, but you are not going to move off that value. The second one is, what are the beliefs that you hold about yourself? Now for this one, you might have 2 columns. I want you to keep them separate because we all tend to have negative beliefs about ourselves and we have positive beliefs about ourselves. And it's okay to write out both of those. I want you to really be able to see them, because writing out the negative beliefs, you know where you need to shift, and writing out the positive beliefs, you know what you can have gratitude in and what you excel in and how to utilize that to help you push out of the old story of your old beliefs. And then the third one is, what are your personality traits? And that's good and bad. So think about personality. Are you happy? Are you a person that judges too quickly? I mean, good and bad. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to write them out. Our personality traits, they make you who you are. And some of those things are what you're going to use to create your impact. So you really need to know, who you are in that sense. And the last one is, what gets you going or gets your blood boiling? And I love this one because this is what you stand for and what you stand against. So what do you stand for that's like so super important to you? And then what do you stand against? Something that really just pisses you off, that you're like gonna say something no matter what, no matter if you're scared to say something or not. For me, I don't like bullying. I don't like the concept of that. So whenever I see that, especially online with women, which I don't understand the purpose of bullying somebody about their business or about what they're doing. So I usually interject even when it's none of my business, because I can't, that just doesn't work for me. So what are those two things that you have? What gets you going and what gets your blood boiling? Okay, this is what we're going to do to look inside ourselves and spend time on all of these questions. So you don't have to answer them right now, but I want you to go back and rewatch this and spend time answering the questions. So you'll have the slides again to do that. So your magic. What is your magic? So your magic is everything that you've ever been good at from the time you were a kid until right now. And for some reason, we naturally tend to ignore skills that we're good at because we think that they're not relevant. So for me, when I started to take the journey, I couldn't believe the things that I was ignoring when I actually paid attention to this. I'm a great problem solver. I'm great at planning. Truly motivated in that sense, but I didn't think it had anything to do with what I was trying to do, and that's actually very wrong. So I want you to take this journey for you. So what are you good at? Make a complete list of all the things from the time you can remember until all the way through now. And this could be a page long. I really want you to think about the things that you're good at. And then after you do that, I want you to circle the things that you're most passionate about that you do. So if that's inspiring, motivating, talking, writing, what are the things that you are the most passionate about? I want you to circle those. After you circle those, the circled ones, what about them do you love? What about them excites you? What can you do with it? What is exciting about the ones you circled? If it's empowering, what is it that you love about empowering? Get really specific. And why do you love it? Why do you love doing it? So that's a twofold part. And I really want you to spend the time thinking why you love them and what about them you love. So really think about what that means. And the last one is, how does inspiring or teaching in those things that you circled make you feel? So if you said empowering women, I want you to write out, how does it feel when you're doing that? And those are feelings. So think actual, like excited, happy, strong. Like I want you to use actual words of feeling so that you can feel it when you're saying it. And then after you do this, I really want you to see what shows up for you, because sometimes you're going to find common threads or messages that you didn't realize were there. You're going to start to see a pattern of the things that maybe you circled, the things that you're writing that you love and why. And then when you do that, that magic comes from your stories. So your stories are meant to heal, inspire, motivate, to create change. And I want you to think about this in your magic, is that this is something that I heard this week, but your stories don't belong to you. So what I mean by that is that your stories, if they are meant to heal, create, change, inspire, whatever, empower, whatever it is that your story is for you, it doesn't belong to you, because if you're keeping it in, you're not using it to serve. So when you go through your magic, I want you to think about the things that you're good at and things that come up. Why are you good at that? Was there a story that's related to it? I want you to start to think about the stories, because too often we're thinking about too many negative stories, that's the only story we have. And you may have a funny story of why you're good at writing. I don't know, why you're good at speaking. Maybe you took classes when you were in middle school and you were the junior vice president. I mean, there's going to be reasons that aren't necessarily always negative. We tend to go on the negative too often. So if there's fun stories that are related at things that you're good at, make sure you notate those too. So this was talking about the stories, some of the powerful stories that changed you. This can be in the course of your life, in your business. I want you to start to think about your mile marker, life-altering type things, and they can be big and small. So you can start, if you want to give yourself a timeline, and start young, because it can be really daunting to think all the stories that changed little parts of you. So think of milestones over the course of your life. And then I want you to think of milestones in your business, the things that are changing you in your business as well. And then what is something that impacted your life in a big way? This is going to be the actual, I'm going to tell you what that were the life altering moment. Most of us have those. Most of us have something negative that happened. Could be something positive, but this is your rock bottom. This is your turning point. This is the day that you said, this is it. I'm doing this. And maybe you haven't had that yet. Maybe you're like, oh my God, like maybe right now when you're sitting here, you're thinking, this is it. Like, this is it. I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I know what I want to do. Whatever it is, I want you to think about it. And you might have more than one, which is great because these are your stories. These are what's going to, when we go back to them and we start to uncover the things that are within them that are the messages, this is where you're going to figure out what your magic actually looks like. Okay. Your why on steroids. This is kind of my favorite comment to this. Your why on steroids. The lessons that you have learned can help others, right? So far too often people talk about your why. It's not big enough. You need to have a why on steroids. So the lessons will act as your compass. So you need to be so moved by your message, your own message. It has to move you. It has to be big enough. And so I often hear women say, I'm doing it for my kids. Is that message so moving that it creates that for you? Not always, sometimes, but not always. What happens when your kids grow up? Where's your message then? Your why has to be bigger. So once you are moved by your own message, it means that you've owned your transformation. You've owned your story fully. That's when you can start leveraging what you've learned to create your impact. That's your why on steroids. You have to leverage what you've learned to create your impact. So this is super important. That's why I say to people, stop using why. Stop using my why is. We're going to get past that. Excuse me. We're also going to talk about, this will probably be in a future training, why the elevator pitches should not be used anymore. Why shouldn't be used anymore. Why niche. I don't even like that word. There's a lot of things that can fall by the wayside at this point, and the why is one of those things. So your impact. I want you to think about, what have I learned in my transformation? So we already talked about you writing down your big stories, lots of aha moments, lots of big rock bottom stories. I want you to go back and think about, what have you learned? What have you truly learned in each one of those transformations? It could be something very small. Maybe you learned about yourself that you didn't feel strong enough, didn't feel like you were enough. Maybe you learned that you want to change. Maybe you learned that you want to be the person that changes. Like, whatever it is, make sure that you write all of that down. What have you learned? And then I want you to think about what the difference is you want to make and why. What is the difference that you truly want to make? And the difference that you want to make is not just a niche standpoint, because it's very, very based on every decision you're going to make. You need to be aligned with that impact. So think about every time you go on Facebook, every time you have a conversation about what you're doing, it needs to be aligned with your impact every single time. So if you don't know what the difference is, if you don't know why you're doing it, decisions that you make are probably not going to be super aligned with you, and they're not going to feel aligned. You're going to try something, you're going to do something, and you're going to feel like, well, that really didn't, that didn't feel right. That didn't have a big impact. That didn't resonate very well. And it's because it's not aligned with your impact. So when I see people saying, I don't know how to create content, or I'm not sure what content I can create, if you're aligned with your why and your impact in every action, you have endless stories and you have endless impact. You just need to know what the difference is that you want to make, period. And I think that's a big part of where people struggle. So impact, I'm going to give you a bonus question. And I want you to ask yourself, who do I have to become to create my impact? Because you must be willing to become her. So who do you have to become? Do you have to become a more powerful, more fearless woman? Do you have to be the one that's okay with getting on live and sharing your story? Do you have to be okay with figuring out how to get past certain things in your life to create boundaries? Who do you have to become? I really want you to think about that. All the things that you're not doing. Do you have to stop consuming and start creating? Do you scroll Facebook all day? What is it that you're doing that isn't going to be a part of who you're becoming? And then what do I have to do to fulfill this impact? Because you must be willing to take action. Action creates belief. You need to start creating the evidence to back up the new impact, the new you. You have to take action. So being stuck in inaction actually means you're not creating belief that you can become her and that you can do that impact. And then what skills will you need? Are there additional skills that you need? Should there be a course that you need to take? Is there something that you need to do? Do you need to study up on something more? I mean, obviously we're always evolving and learning, and you're always evolving in your craft. But what skills do you actually need? Like, get real with yourself. If you're like, my impact is to write a book, do you know what to do to write a book? Maybe there's something that you need to take. Maybe there's a course, or maybe there's just something you need to learn in order to fulfill that. So you need to make sure that you're honest with yourself if you have the skills that you need. It's more than just your transformations and teaching from those. Sometimes we are missing certain skills, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, this is my favorite one. So this is a super bonus. Now this is a sentence that's going to define your mission and your impact, but it's fun. So this is going to be a little longer. So I want you to kind of take all this in. This is and it's not easy to do. So I want you to think about this. Okay. So your initial impact statement, usually it's really vanilla. Like, I want people to be happy. I want people to have better relationships. I want people to be the best versions of themselves. I know you've heard it all. We've probably all, when we started, had a very initial vanilla impact. I know I want to empower women. Way too boring, way too vanilla. Doesn't even feel, if you say that, it doesn't even feel impactful yourself. So the problem with a general impact statement like these is it's too vague, doesn't motivate you into action, and it certainly doesn't motivate the people or the women that you're trying to motivate. You need to go deeper. You need to get into the impact so that you're more specific and you have something to grab onto. This is really for you. The impact statement needs to be clear enough and strong enough so that anytime you get off course or anytime you're struggling, you can access it. You can look at it, you can post it to your computer, post it to your wall and say, okay, I remember. It has to be that important, that impactful. Finding life purpose statements that people, are trying to find, they take time. It's a process. It's like peeling back layers and layers and layers to get down to that. And that's okay. It's ever evolving and it's going to change as you change, and that's okay. But you have to just be okay. Not only do you have to do it, you have to understand that it has to be deeper than, I want to empower women. So the impact that you want to have, such as to have people embrace life or act authentically, to see their true selves, to find their personal power, discover creativity, experience aliveness, whatever it is. I want you to really think about that. And we answered all those questions, so you'll have a deeper understanding of it. But usually in life purpose sessions, when you're talking about that stuff, we focus on finding one version that's just a rough, workable version, because this can take months. I tell you, sometimes people take years to refine this to the exact thing. And once you become an expert in your crafts, it becomes a lot easier that you're going to accept it and not change it. Because I know for me, I'm constantly going, oh, I really like this better. I really like that better. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just an evolution. So the one impact statement I found it's the metaphor. It captures kind of everything, and it can be fun and can be funny because you can share this or you cannot. This can just be for you. But when you're looking at a metaphor, here's some examples so you understand. For the first part, I am the magician. I'm the lighthouse. I'm the beacon. I'm the dynamite. I'm the rock. We're talking a real metaphor here. The alarm clock. And the metaphor can also be an action. So I wake people up. I explode lies. I uncover the inner truth. I call people home. So I want you to see how you can utilize it in two different ways. It can be funny, it can be action. And finding metaphors are difficult. So I want you to like use this as a fun bonus and something fun to do. It's kind of hard for us to see it, but I think that if you walk yourself through it, you'll actually have fun with it. I came up with like 4 or 5 of them, but the goal is really to find a version that rings true for you, that for right now you can use, and know that it's going to be perfected, and know that it's something that's concise and it's going to give you maximum impact that you can look at. And it's gotta be less than 15 words. We try to jam pack so many words and things and use so many trendy words, unleash, unravel, whatever. So you're just gonna follow the format that's on the screen. I am the metaphor, so that women, impact statement. So these are a couple examples, and then I'm gonna give you my example. So the I am the lighthouse that guides people to their dreams. For me, as an example, it's kind of vanilla, but it's a good starting point. So I'm the dynamite that transformed people's lives. When you listen to that, it's a little better. Like you're the dynamite. When I hear that, I'm like, ooh, okay, what does that mean? I'm the rock in the shoe that causes people to remember to be alive. I laugh at that when I chuckle, because I'm like, okay, so that's like the gnat that's flying around your ear that like never lets go, that wants to keep bugging you into remembering. I'm the alarm clock that awakens people into their magnificence. I don't like the word magnificence. I feel like it's too airy. But for me, mine is I help women unshackle the chains, keeping them a slave to their stories so they can be free to create impact in the life and live their fulfilled dream life. That's it. And I look at that and I say, that's probably going to change, but it's a good metaphor. Unshackling chains is a great metaphor for that. So think of just something that's fun. It can be funny. That's fun. You are going to utilize this for you. You can share this. If you come up with something that's so impactful to you that you're like, I love this, I'm going to start sharing this, instead of using the generic niche elevator pitch stuff that we see plastered all over Facebook. That's great. But you don't have to. You can just utilize this for you. They can be flowery, they can be fun, everything's okay. You just run with it however you feel, but create a big statement. Create something that's important to you, something that feels good. It should have power to compel you into action all the time. Every time you see it, if you have it posted, it should give you that push. If you're like, oh, I really don't want to have to do this, I don't want to have to do that, I don't want to work my business, and you see that and you're like, I remember if I don't do this, this impact isn't going to happen. So I also have 3 visualizations that I like to use. There's so many different things that you can do to think about. You can draw pictures. People like music. If you're an artist, you really have to encourage to be creative. But for today's purpose, I'm going to do one of the visualizations with you. So I want you guys to close your eyes and just take a deep breath and just relax. And I want you to imagine that you're in a large group of people. They're all walking around in front of a stage, and up on that stage is your future self. So you're standing there. Your future self is standing there, and she begins to speak. She's speaking to this large group of women. And suddenly you become aware of a shift that's happened to you and the entire audience. Your future self has in some way had a profound impact on you and the rest of the people in the audience. You are all altered. All of you are changed in some big way by everything that you just said. Aware of this impact on you and everyone else, you leave the room completely changed for the rest of your life. What was the impact your future self had on you and everyone else? How were you and every other woman in there changed. How were you transformed? And who was your future self being to have such an impact? Okay, you can open your eyes. And I want you to think about that. And I want you to think of, were you scared when you were walking yourself through that? Were you like, I'm terrified to think I was speaking? Or did you immediately at the end of that start to know how you were changed and how everyone else was changed? So I want you to think about using that kind of visualization and walk yourself through it. I know a lot of people are really good at meditating or at just closing their eyes and doing it. You can do any of those kinds of thought and really imagining being the one that's on stage speaking and having that presence and asking yourself those questions. Asking yourself the questions of what kind of impact that you had. Okay, so what she needs. So what she needs, this is where your passion, your mission, and your impact meet your business. This is where work is required. This is where we get out of all the inner work and we actually have to start the investment in the time and thinking into the business. So in order for you to bring value and create change, you have to be a master at bringing your expertise to change lives. I mean, that's the only way that you're going to create what you want and change the lives of everyone else. You need to know her better than she knows herself. You need to be able to make a post and say exactly what you're feeling based on your impact, based on what you know, based on what you're an expert at because you've went through it, and it be the same thing that's on her mind. So when you think about the person that you want to serve and impact, you want to ask yourself, what are her struggles? And this question isn't difficult because think about what your struggles have been. Think about what your struggles were before you moved past that and transformed. Think about what your struggles might be right now because somebody else is having that same struggle. What does she need to hear? This is really easy. What did you need to hear? What would you have loved somebody to tell you 6 months ago? Because someone else is looking for that same message and just waiting for somebody to say it. Why does she want to change her life? Why? Why do you want to change your life? What is the big reason why? And far too often people want to talk just about money. And having the money is a tool. Money is a tool that provides you the ability to create more change. That's it. So why does she want to change her life? Get deeper than to be financially free, because everybody wants that. What has to happen or change for her to create this? What has to happen? What does she have to do? What did you have to do? Did you have to say, I had to get over myself? I had to call bullshit on myself? I had to really actually commit and do it? Like, what did you have to do? And then you really want to hone in on how will her life be different. Talk about the why her life will be different and the emotional part of it, not just the financial part of it. And what's really, really important is the last one is what will happen if she doesn't create this change? What will happen? I can tell you that reminding someone that they are going to be stuck with chapter 5 of their book on rerun over and over and over and over and over is like a, deer in the headlights. Like, do you want to be stuck on an elevator that's going to the same floor up and down, you can't get off? No. So if you're reminding people what that feels like, if you don't create this change right now, what's going to happen a year from now? Are you going to be riding that same elevator to the same floor and not change anything? So people don't buy a process. People don't buy into a process. People buy the change. People buy the transformation. But we have to feel it. We have to hit that rock bottom, which is why we talk about our rock bottoms, in order to understand. So those are the things that you're talking about when you talk about what she needs. Okay. So there will be obstacles. And you have to understand that most of those obstacles are in your own mind. We are our own biggest obstacle. Nobody out there is trying to prevent us from changing our life except for us. So the only thing that we can do is fight. And I want to be able to give you some ammo to fight with, because I can tell you with 100% conviction that once you've uncovered your mission and your impact, once you know without a doubt what that is and your message is so moving to you, overcoming obstacles is the only option. There is no other option for you, because you wake up every morning without an option because you feel that you cannot do anything else. So think about these things. Are these your thoughts? Are these the thoughts she's having? Who do I am to think I can share my story or create impact? I fear being rejected. I'm so scared to be judged. That happens a lot when I talk to people about telling their story. They're afraid that somebody's going to judge them for their story. Why am I getting in my own way and holding myself back? Because there's a reason. Usually they're fear-based. Usually they go back to some of these other reasons. Have I seriously been stuck on the same chapter for years? And most people are going to say, unfortunately. Another big one is that I am afraid to be seen. A lot of people say I'm afraid to be seen because I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to be judged. And this is a big one. My story will definitely piss someone off. I have a lot of people that say, I'm worried that my story is going to piss off a family member. It's going to piss off someone else. And at the end of the day, it's your story. And if they're a part of that story and they get angry about you sharing your own, I mean, once you've moved past the part of your story where you've transformed it and you're telling it, people's names don't get brought into it. You're beyond that, because it's not about anger anymore. So if they have anger that's coming up, that's their problem. It's not your problem. And then the next one is I really don't want to have to look at my own shit. Most people don't want to have to. We just package it up in a nice little package and put it away, and it looks like a present, but it's still shit. So you have to unwrap it and you have to get rid of it. And then the last one is I feel emotionally attached to my story. And this is big. People, if you're living in the same story for so long, people really become attached to it. It's a being, it's a part of who they are. And to ask somebody that the only way that they can take the next step is to be willing to change that story, people are like, even though they don't want to be in it anymore, people are like, oh no, I'm too scared to change the story. Like, who am I going to be without it? So working through that is a really big deal for both you and for both whoever else you're serving. So being prepared to fight, this is the model work. So if you guys have been on my trainings or on any of my lives before, this is how you do the inner work daily. This is where the model comes in. And the model is simply work that was done by and created by Brooke Castillo. And it simply is the circumstance, which the circumstance is always neutral. So that could be, I haven't signed a new client. It's very neutral. It's just a fact. And then it's the thoughts that you have about that. What thoughts are you having? So if you're talking about the negative realm, if you're saying I haven't signed a new client, the thoughts are, I must be a bad coach. People must not want what I have. I must not know enough. I clearly don't know what I'm doing. I mean, you could have all of a million thoughts, and then you go back to your thoughts and say, how are those thoughts making me feel? Well, they're making me feel like crap. They're making me feel powerless. They're making me feel depressed and anxious. And then what actions are you taking from those thoughts and feelings? Most of the time it's none, or it's Facebook scrolling, or it's comparison. You're going to start to look at every other person and compare. And then you look at your results. Well, what results are you getting? The same results. You're not signing a client. So you have to be willing to go back to that model work and say, the circumstance is, I haven't signed a client. You must be willing to change your thoughts and your feelings about that circumstance and just say, well, what have I haven't done any trainings in a month. I haven't posted on Facebook. I haven't, how do those feel? How do you feel about those things? okay, I feel a little, I could feel angry with myself. I could feel better. I could feel excited to know the things I have to do. And the actions, I could simply say, I need to start doing the work. And then your results are going to be different because now you're taking actions from your aligned place, your aligned thoughts, your aligned feelings. You really need to be willing to just change the way you think and that you feel about whatever circumstance you're going through. I'm scared to tell my story, or I haven't told my story. That's another circumstance. What are the thoughts around you not telling your story? We go back to any of those things. I don't want to be rejected. All of those things, you have to be willing to change the thoughts about that. So the thought changing on I haven't shared my story. I'm excited to share my story. I'm ready to share my story. My story matters. My feelings, excited, powerful, and then actions. What are the actions I take? I tell my story. And then whatever the result is that you're going to get, it's going to be completely different. So be willing to utilize this part of the work for your inner work all the time. Anytime it comes up and you're having mind drama, utilize this model work to change and help the inner work for your mind drama. So, new level, new devil. I know everybody's heard that before. Once you start moving through this, there are always going to be things that come up. You have to remember that you are the catalyst. You have to fully own your story. Your clients, the people that you want in your team, they're all waiting. They're just waiting for you to figure it out, own it, and start being it. You have the dream life. You have what's waiting. It's all there. It's just waiting for you to take action and create. That's it. It's deliberate, aligned action. And that goes back to knowing your impact. So it's really, 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 if you guys notice, everything ties together. Everything comes down to the point where if you're taking action that's aligned with your mission and your impact always, you're fully owning and utilizing your story to transform, your results are going to change. There's just a lot of steps that I think are being skipped, and that's why. So being ready. We tend to really say, I'm frustrated and I'm so ready and I'm going to do it. And when the rubber meets the road, we just don't play full out. We don't stay committed. We don't stay committed to do the work. We don't stay the course. And as soon as it gets tough, we jump ship. We're like, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at that by myself. I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to have to do that. We get ourselves involved in things, involved in trainings. I don't know how many people I can say probably have stacks of notebooks of trainings that they participated in or courses that they took, and they took notes, and those books are sitting in a corner somewhere and they've never done a single thing with them. So what I did in this training, which I don't normally do, and the reason why I'm doing it is because all the questions in the training are super, super important to go through and do yourself. But part of the magic, where you guys find your magic, part of my magic is actually activating you. It's being able to go through each and every step with you and uncover it by listening to your story. And you have to be willing to tell your story. And that's the part that's a little bit rough for some people. I had a call this week, and some people just aren't ready to tell a story, even if it's to one person, even if it's just me. But once you're having somebody listen to you fully express who you are, what your journey looked like, how you got here, how you got to this place, it's the integral piece that's missing for you to get to that point, for you to just say, I've figured out what my mission is, I figured out what my purpose is, and really just ditch the shitty, I'm stuck in the same place chapter feeling. Utilizing your story to heal is what everybody wants to do. And unfortunately, I would love to say that in 2 hours you would be completely transformed and have it all. But I'm not going to lie, like I went through 6 months of coaching to get to this spot. But what I was missing is all the little bits and pieces that we went through tonight. Had I known that, I could have saved myself some time. which is all what we end up wanting to do. You want to take massive action in the actual. I took a lot of action in messy action, which was good. You take messy action and you figure it out. But I figured it out and then hired, a coach, and then went 6 months to do the rest of the work. So to me, that was wasting a lot of time. And that's why I feel like the steps will help you. Now, if that's something that, that you don't want to do, it's totally cool. I want you to go back to these slides. And I want you to, you're going to get them in your email. I'm just going to go back to this one. And I want you to really sit down and answer all these questions. Really sit down and circle the things that show up. Look at the messages that show up. Are there things that are trending in there? Can you take all this information along with your stories, and can you compile them and be willing to be open enough to look at them and say, this is what I see? That's going to be the key. So I want to make sure that within these, for you ladies that are on live right now, if you have questions about any one of the areas, I want you to go ahead and feel free to ask the question. I think I'm going to stop screen sharing here. There we go. And I want you to ask whatever questions you have. You can gallery. Let me get off that. I hate that word. It's in gallery view. I'll go through any of the questions on any of the slides that you have. So if you have a question on them, any of the questions you need to sit down and ask yourself, you can ask them now. I will answer them. Just feel free to unmute yourself and have at it, because I don't want you to leave here with a question about, sounds bad, a question about a question. But I do want you to, and I think I just saw your, Stassi, your chat question, why and niche drive me nuts. So yes, so we're like totally moving past those. We're going to get rid of the elevator pitch. We're going to get rid of all of that. I'm also working on something that we'll be doing in the 2-hour intensive. Is actually a new, I don't even know what name I'm going to use for it yet, but it's a new way to actually have a very powerful approach in when somebody asks you, what do you do? Because right now I can tell you the elevator pitch and the niche that people are working with, it's so like, just to say that when people say, what do you do? Well, it's really hard to explain. It's not hard to explain. It's hard to explain because exactly what you said, Stassi, because we're driving each other nuts with the whys and the niches. And the fact that we want to put 15,000 verbs in there and all these nouns and be like all the trendy words. So we're going to stop doing that and get past all of that. I think that's what will be key into making that part of it better. Being able to walk away with knowing what your direction you're going in. And again, this is not that it's not going to change. It could change 6 months from now. You could look at all this stuff and you could rewrite half of it and it could be completely different, and that's okay. But you having the direction that you're going with your mission and your impact, and knowing that it comes from here first, and having to dig into your transformation and your stories is going to change you being able to not only explain what you do, but wanting to tell people what you do all the time. So I wrote mine out. So I'll usually, go over mine and people will be able to see. Now, for some of you, when I explained it to like my coach, because she follows my posts, like she's like, yeah, I totally get it. So you may say yours and it may be so connected with some of the things that you're doing already that people will get it. People will just be like, oh yeah, I knew that's what you did, but okay. Like I totally get it. Some people are going to be like, wow, I didn't know that. So it's going to be impactful in both ways, but it's also going to be the most impactful to you. You need to be able to utilize it that way. And so that you stop feeling stuck in this section. Like we need to if you feel stuck about your impact and your mission and what you're supposed to say when people ask you what you do, this is where you're stuck in the same chapter. And I think a lot of people are stuck in this chapter. So do you have questions on any of the slides? You're going to get them in your email so that you can go back through it and pause and be able to take notes on them. So don't worry about that if you didn't get all the questions down. There are a lot of them. So I want you to be able to use the slides and go back.
Yeah, and see, and where I struggle is it's like I've had so many people come up and tell me lately, like, they don't know what I do. And I'm sitting here going, you seriously don't know what I do? I mean, I post on it every single day and you don't know what I do. And so that's where I struggle because my posts are obviously not connecting at all. So it's like, what do I
Okay. All right. So that's where you're going to go back. And when you start to answer some of the questions and you start to talk about your transformations and your stories, that's where you can go back and start finding where you can connect with what you're essentially trying to help everyone with and connecting to your story. So I would have to go back, and that would be part of, what I would do, but we'd have to go back. And once we go through all that, you'd have to like take an audit of like some of your posts and say, like, pick out 2 or 3 or 4 posts that you feel were like, when you wrote it, you were like, I felt like I was really, saying what I wanted to say and connecting, and then they didn't land, to figure out why. Figure out why they didn't land and why they aren't connecting. I'm guessing it's probably because they aren't super aligned with what your impact is and what your mission is. And because you can't verbalize that, it's very hard to be able to verbalize it in a post.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
So, I mean, that's probably part of it. So I think if you go back and figure out, if you answer all the questions and figure out, I would take a look after you answer all the questions. If you feel like you really connected to those questions, I would ask you to go back and look at your own posts, a couple of them, and take a look at the post and see how you answered the questions and how your transformations and why and all of that. See if they landed for you. See if you were like, what I was trying to say didn't really come through, or my true voice didn't really come through in them. You might be able to see that for yourself. It's possible that, it would have to go a little bit deeper, but I would take a look at that first. That's a good way to know. It's a good thing that people are telling you, I'm not sure what you do.
Right.
I would question that in 2 ways. Are they talking, your multi-level marketing company? Are they talking they don't know in general? I mean, it's kind of a broad question.
Yeah, and when I tell them, they're like, oh, well, wow, we didn't know you did that. And I'm like, okay, I really suck at marketing if you don't have a clue.
Well, it also could be that, they're not seeing all of your posts. They're not seeing everything you're posting. So that would just mean if that's the case and you're having a lot of people miss that, it may just be adding a certain thing to each one of your posts to kind of get it in people's minds. Like, this is it. This is it. Like, once people start seeing it, then it would be different. I would probably say that there's probably a good chance that people aren't just seeing all of them. Like, maybe you're really, really good hitting posts. They're just not seeing.
That could be too, yeah.
So
you never know.
Yeah. So it could be both of those, but it is a good thing to go through it, go through all the questions, go through everything, and then take a look at a couple of your own posts that you really feel like, we have those posts that we do that we're like, we go back and read it and they're like, damn, how did that come out of me? Go take a look at one of those that you feel and see if it looks like it aligns with who you are and what you're saying. Is if it doesn't, then that's where the missing piece is. If it does, then I would just say, more of that more often so that people are actually getting to see it. Okay. Leslie, you got any questions? I'm unmuting you.
I think for me, like going through the action steps and making the list and seeing where my patterns are, I think that's the biggest first step for me. Like, I'll probably have more questions once I take these action steps.
I think that's the first part. Like, once you answer them and then you go through and you start to see if you have patterns of things that are repeating in stories, repeating transformation patterns, repeating things that show up for you as far as what you're good at. I find that when you go to what's your magic part and you start writing all the things that you're really good at that you can do, and you look back at your stories and you're going to find they connect a lot. Okay, well, that makes sense. I'm really good at speaking and motivating through speaking, and I go back to a story and I figure out why that is. So I think a lot of times people are scared to think it's like a daunting task to have to go and find the pieces, the things in your life that transform you, that made you who you are. Don't think of it as a daunting task, really. I just took it as time blocks. Time block your years out and say, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 18. You can time block it in however you want. And in that section, you could say if like 15 to 18, like nothing life altering like happened to you, nothing like changed or rocked your world and transformed you in a way, just, put nothing in there for now and keep moving to right now. And those are your personal transformations. And then you can go to when your business started, or like whenever you started your business, and block it out that way. And for businesses, it could be started with this company, stopped, went with this company. Maybe that's the change. And if you did that, there's a transformation in there. Why did you do that? Why did you shift off? And sometimes that transformation is when you think about it now, could be a negative one. Like I wasn't sure what I was doing, so I just shipped to the next one because that sounded really great. Just be honest with that section, because when you get through all of that, those are going to be your business transformations are going to be just another thing for you to talk about. They're a part of your story. Why are you doing this business right now? Like, is there anything that, if you've been doing this business for a year, what's happened in there? Did you go to a convention or a trip or hits? I mean, all the things that happen, just break them down that way. It's so much easier not to have to regurgitate your entire life, because that's just too much. It's like, I think that's part of the reason why people don't want to tell their stories, because they don't know where to start. And really all this is once you break down your story and you break it down into sections and you say, these are the things that happened to me that changed and transformed me. It's helping you find what you're good at, what you're an expert in, what you can talk about, what you can teach because you've already been through it. It's helping you learn how you want to impact because how you've been impacted. And then it gives you an enormous amount of content to talk about and to integrate into your business and to integrate in a post for people to get to know you. And they aren't all like, again, they don't always have to be the woe is me, like sad. People don't want to hear all those stories. You want to hear some good stuff too. Like you're going to have something that happened to you that was positive in your life, that was a positive transformation. You got to include those too. So just everything and anything you can think of in time block it off. That way you actually do it. Because if I told you right now to start from age 5 and give me something every year, 5, 6, like until your age now, I think everybody would probably look at me and go, I am not doing this at all. This is not that important. So just literally take it by 5-year time blocks.
Yeah. Well, and part of where I struggle too is like, does anybody really care what happened at age 5?
This isn't for anybody to care about. That you may not ever tell a story about that when you were that young. This is for you to notate in there, like, did something happen between age 5 and 10 that impacted my life?
Okay.
Impacted and changed me. So you may never, ever bring up anything about that time except for you discovering the transformations that you've had.
Okay.
As you move through, you might see, I had a transformation. And sometimes, or did you do something that, you have people that pick the 10 to 15 bracket and maybe they had anorexia, or maybe they attempted suicide, or maybe, you have all those things in there that become a part of who you are and of your story. And you might never talk about them, but they're going to give you clues as to how you've personally transformed. So if you've had, like for somebody who's had anorexia, they can say, battled and overcome anorexia, or maybe they battled anorexia the whole time. And, what were they struggling with? How did they, change? What did they do to change? That's just going to give you all those kind of pointers. It's that part of it is going to be for you. A lot of your business stuff, your business timelines, you may talk about all that. You may talk about every single one of those things. Those may be ways for you to reach people, saying, I went from this company to this company, and you don't have to say company names, but I switched, and here was the lesson I learned in that. So it can be very simple. But for you, this timeline for you is to figure out where your impact is. What is it that you completely work through in your life that now you want to turn and impact others' lives? Because you're going to find that's a lot hidden in your story you didn't know was hidden there.
I'm sure.
Because when I wrote mine out in the little bits that I did a live on, I didn't realize until somebody mentioned, back to me and commented back that what I said I wanted to do and who I wanted, it's always been hidden in there somehow. And I didn't I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, gave me some bullet points, and I went back and I went, you are so right. So right. I would have never looked at it that way. So it gave me a complete different way to look at those things. Because I always said the same thing. I don't live from that place. It doesn't really matter. But then sometimes it does. Like I did a live, it was yesterday, about calling bullshit on yourself. And you have that story. And I said, nope, over it. All I did was change it into a new version of the story. And I was living from this story now. So you'll find those things too. You're like, okay, well, I said I was over that. And I really was. And I really am over it. But because I just changed it into something else. I just changed it into a new friggin', a new version of that story. And you're like, oh shit. So you'll find things. These are like the tweaking things that happen when you actually do all that. If you do all the work and look at it all, and actually sometimes too, I would tell you, maybe you take a big piece of paper or a marker board or whatever it is. I'm big on, maybe you just use a different piece of paper for everything. And then when you're done, you spread it out so you can look at it and just see it. Just see where things go together and see what patterns you have. You'll be surprised. I mean, I'm pretty visual. So for me to put it all out like that, it was like, okay. So if you're a writing person and visual doesn't bother you, then you can just, journal it out anyway, but just do it whatever way works for you the best. And maybe it's a video. Maybe if it's just you turning your video on and you dictating it to yourself and then going back and listening to it.
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
So if you want to take your 10, your 5-year increments of your story and you want to just turn your video on and say, okay, this is years 5 through 10, and these are the things, because you're going to find when you talk, you're going to talk about things that you didn't realize that you were going to talk about or say, and you're going to play it back, and then you're going to be like, wow. Or maybe you haven't shared that story before and you've never said it out loud. And then when you say it, first of all, it's really powerful when you actually just say it. And even though you're the only one listening to it, hearing it back, you'll hear new things that you didn't realize you said. It's like being your own coach. You're listening to yourself and you're saying, wow, okay, I hear that, and this is what I'm hearing.
I have a question.
Well, and like you mentioned, it's going to piss people off. I didn't realize that was one thing that bothered me. But, I've got people in my life that are like, well, nobody cares. It's like, and yeah, I'm like, well, but yes, actually they do care because they went through it too.
Well, here's the thing. Them telling you nobody cares. I didn't ask you to care.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I didn't ask you for your opinion, and I didn't ask you to care.
Yeah.
This message is not for you. Or maybe it is for you. That's why you're attacking me, but we're not going to say anything. This message message is not for you. I haven't, this message is going to reach the people it needs to. Right. And if you're not ready to hear the message, just mute, unfollow, whatever the words are. And that's it. That's where you just have to, that's why I said, once your message is so moving to yourself, none of that people say is going to matter. You're going to be like, don't care. And you'll be able to move past the pissing people off thing. Leslie, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question about making a list of what you're good at. Like, is this something that I should only make a list of, or is this something that like I can ask other people around me, like what they see in me too, or is that?
I want you to make the list for yourself initially, all the things that you're good at. The issue that I have with you asking people is I want you to be very, very careful who you ask. It needs to be somebody who is going to give you, yes, honestly, but most people tend to, when you turn to do that, they'll say, oh, you're good at this, but you know, hey, you really don't do this, or you don't do it. You don't need any of that. Like, I'm not asking you the buts. I'm asking you what I think I could get better at, or what I'm not good at. I'm asking you if there's, you can maybe say it to him, if there's one thing that I can, if I ask you, what's the one thing that you think I'm really good at? One thing. Because if you just tell them you want one answer, that leaves no room for them to start saying the whys, the hows, the whats, the buts, none of that. You don't want any of that. So just be careful who you ask.
Okay.
If it's like your mom or your sister or an aunt, like somebody that you trust in the answer, or a mentor, something that you're close to, I would say yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Asking 5 people, you know, and getting that feedback is always good. Just be very careful, and initially make the list for yourself first.
Okay.
Because what would be good is if you made the list for yourself and then you asked 5 people and you got 5 different answers, and they also showed up in what you knew you were good at. Yep. And take it back to all the things that you're good at. Even if you don't, people tend to say what are you good at? You're trying to relate it to your business only. And you need to as a whole, what are you good at? If you're good at playing croquet, then write it down. I mean, if you're good at playing checkers, I'm good at doing that too. You know, whatever it is right now, you just want to be able to get out and be grateful for all of the things that you're good at.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Anything else? I know it was a lot, so probably going back and actually just re-listening to a section, pausing, and then being able to, you know, write it down or dictate what you want to say, or any of that, it will make it easier, because then you can go back and forth. But your mind needs to be in it, and you need to be in a space when you do it to be willing to go into the answers. And that may mean that you do one section at a time at different times. So if you're doing the first set of questions and then you're like, okay, that's good for the night, and then you do a separate set of questions the next night, it's fine. I would rather have you spend the time on them and really go through them and put everything out, and then try to rush through it. Because like the one that's, what are you good at? You're going to be like, I can draw, I can talk to people, and okay, I'm done with that question. Moving on. So you got to be willing to do the work in that part of it. And sometimes you don't feel like it, especially when it's a lot in one thing. So you've got 4 sections with a lot of questions, with a few bonus questions where, you know, coming up with your metaphor. I would say that part of it, the metaphor part, you can save that for last. That's not like, you want you to answer all the other questions first, and you can do that one last. Sometimes it's easier to get your metaphor if you've answered all the other questions anyways. All right. Anything else? Stassi, you got any other questions?
It goes back to the quote unquote niche thing that we all hate. Mm-hmm. So like when I first started, you know, being interested in being coaching, I was like, I didn't want to coach people with disabilities at all. I didn't, because there really isn't a whole lot of money there. But yet, the farther that I'm getting from that, it's not so much that I want to coach them, but I want to be an advocate, because there's just so many things that, you know, like I'm with a travel company, and there's cruises in 2018, boats people with disabilities can't get on. And it's like, that shouldn't be in 2018. But that's not going to be where I make any money at. So I have to target more than just women with disabilities, because right now there's not, am I making sense?
Yeah. So I want you to think of when you're writing all the things down that you're passionate about, that mm-hmm. you love, you're going to have things in there, and be willing to have things that generate income, and have something that you're just so passionate about that it is a passion project. It's something that you do, and that you know, it's like people with animals, and they save animals, they do shelters, that is not something that's generating them income, but it's something that in here they're so passionate about that they're still going to do it. So you find a way to incorporate it. So one of the girls that I was a coach on, she found a way it was very important to her, because she couldn't afford food for her kids at one point in time. So she serves food at a shelter sometimes. you're going to have something, like you said, you're going to be an advocate about, and that's 100% okay. And I think it's something that you shouldn't let go. You shouldn't let go of it just because it's not going to be a thing that generates you money. Okay. Because you never know, at some point in time, you could do the work as an advocate, research, get the information, like you're saying in 2018, there's cruise ships, be the person that approaches these companies and is being an advocate. And at some point in time, that can turn into anything. That can turn into speaking about this, and you could make money off of that. It could turn into you writing a book about it. It could turn into something down the line, but you have to be, if that is so important to you that it moves you in that sense, you just have to be willing to let go of the fact that right now it's not going to be where you financially gain from. Doesn't mean that that won't be that in the future, but to have anybody tell you that you should let that go, that wouldn't be acceptable to me.
Okay.
It shouldn't be acceptable to you. It's something that you, and just make time for it. So say I have my business, I have my 2 businesses, and I to make my plan of how I'm going to dictate what I do in my day for those things. And I'm going to dictate 1 hour or 2 hours a day, 3 times, whatever it is, to do the work on the advocate end and add it in. Okay. If that means you take out, a book reading, like if you read books during that time and you don't do that during it, or people don't watch TV or stuff like that, just remove that kind of stuff and add that in, because the more you do it, I think the more you're going to see that there will be avenues later probably for you to do that. I mean, imagine you contacting these cruise companies, contacting news outlets with your numerous emails that you said that you can't believe this, and that's going to change into you becoming anything. You can do all this research, keep it all together, and decide to write a book.
Well, that's good idea. Yeah.
Decide to speak on it at, conference. I'm sure there's leadership conferences that are related to disabilities. I'm sure it's, hitting even something like veterans that are disabled, that are having the same problems. It's a huge, broad range. And I know you've been talking about it for a while. And I think that the best way for you to move forward in it is just for right now, it being your passion project, your advocate, and whatever it turns into later, great. But don't have any, because it's so important to you, because you're talking about it a lot, you shouldn't have any need to have a financial gain off of it. Right. And in the future, if you do, great. That's even better. That just means that your voice got so loud that now you're gaining and somebody else is gaining more.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. And that's one thing, it was like, well, you need to just stay with this target area. I'm like, I can't stay with one targeted area. I can help all women travel, and it doesn't have to be, not just disabilities. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. You can, this is where you think about if that's where when you do the work and your impact and your mission comes down to, that is my impact and my mission is to work on that part of it, the disability. I think that committing to just start doing the work, however it looks, with no need for what is the result going to be, no need for how am I going to gain anything from it, because personally you're going to gain every day. Every time you make a step in the right direction, you're going to have personal gain from how you feel, and that's all that matters right now. And then keep working your businesses the way that you work them and go in that direction. I think that'll be positive momentum if you find out that that's your true impact, without making it think you have to quit everything else and try to make that work. Because I don't believe that at all.
Exactly.
Or having to mesh them. There's no reason for that.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's why I was curious what your thoughts were on it.
100%. Everybody good? Leslie?
Yeah, I think
good. Okay. So I'm going to send, as soon as this downloads, I'm going to send out the recording. And then any questions after that, you guys can just hit reply to the email and, shoot them off. Or you can, if you want to go in the Facebook group and do it, you can do it in there. Nobody will know what you're talking about, but it doesn't really matter. If they didn't watch it, then they aren't going to know, but you can still put the question in there. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank y'all, ladies. And
Appreciate it.
have a good night. If I'm sure I'll see you all on in the Facebook land. But if you have any questions in between, you know where to find me. Just message me or shoot me an email.
Okay, will do.
All
Thanks
right.
so much. Appreciate
No
it.
problem. Have a good night.
Good night.